Welcome, Mahak Verma. Today, we're diving into a complete revision deck designed specifically for TGT and PGT English recruitment exams. We'll explore key texts like William Makepeace Thackeray's A Novel Without a Hero from Vanity Fair, along with essential notes to help you master your exams. Let's get started. Let's start by looking at the roadmap for this deck. We begin with the foundations, the author, the historical context, and why the title matters. Then we move into story mastery, covering plot summaries, key characters, and their relationships. Next is the literary toolkit, where we explore themes, symbols, and narrative techniques. Finally, we'll tackle exam firepower, the kind of questions you can expect, and smart revision strategies. This roadmap will guide us step by step.
Let's take a closer look at Vanity Fair, a novel that calls itself Without a Hero, written by William Makepeace Thackeray. It was first published in monthly parts between 1847 and 1848, then as a complete volume. It belongs to the early Victorian era and fits within realism, but with a sharp satirical edge and a picaresque style. The story unfolds in England and Brussels during the Napoleonic era, narrated by an all-knowing voice that often breaks the fourth wall, guiding us like a theatre manager. This sets the stage for everything to come.
Thackeray uses the idea of Vanity Fair as a metaphor for all of Victorian society, a place full of vanity, ambition, and hypocrisy. Everyone's performing, chasing status, wealth, and reputation, just like visitors at a fair chasing pleasure. The subtitle, A Novel Without a Hero, tells us no one here is truly heroic. The narrator even calls himself the puppet master, with characters as puppets in this grand performance. And remember, the title comes directly from John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress, a key detail for exams. Let's take a closer look at the social and historical backdrop of Vanity Fair. The novel explores wealth from colonial trade, with characters like Sedley representing the East India Company's influence. It contrasts new merchant fortunes against old aristocratic money, highlighting shifting power dynamics. Marriage is shown as a transaction, more about money and status than love. Women's security depends heavily on marriage, reflecting their legal and economic dependence. All of this unfolds within a rigid class system during the Napoleonic Wars, with Waterloo marking a key turning point. Let's take a closer look at Vanity Fair's style and literary traits. The novel uses satire to poke fun at social climbing and hypocrisy, while irony creeps in through the narrator's tone, often contradicting how characters see themselves. We also see intrusive narration. The author directly addresses us, adding commentary along the way. Realism grounds the story with detailed, unvarnished views of Victorian life. Humor pops up through comic exaggeration, and the panoramic canvas spans all social levels, from aristocrats down to servants. This slide also introduces Thackeray himself, a complex figure shaped by his life and career. Let's take a closer look at Thackeray's major works, starting with Vanity Fair, his most famous novel and a sharp satire of society. It's often compared to Dickens' Pendennis, since the two authors were rivals and shared similar themes. Other key works include The History of Pendennis, which is semi-autobiographical, and The History of Henry Esmond, a historical novel. Thackeray's later novels, like The Newcomes and The Virginians, continue his exploration of social issues and personal stories. Let's look at how Vanity Fair stands apart from other major Victorian novelists. Dickens leans into sentiment and melodrama, showing sympathy for the poor, while Thackeray takes a more balanced, satirical view of all social classes. Austen, writing earlier, focuses on a smaller domestic world, unlike Thackeray's broad social canvas. Eliot dives deeper into psychology and moral questions, less satirical and more philosophical. Bronte explores intense personal passion, contrasting with Thackeray's external social critique. Hardy's work is marked by tragic fate, quite different from Thackeray's ironic comedy.
Let's look at the story of Vanity Fair through the lives of two very different women. Becky Sharp starts poor but sharp-witted, determined to climb the social ladder by any means. Meanwhile, Amelia Sedley marries into comfort but faces loss and heartbreak. Their paths cross with love, war, and scandal, revealing a society that punishes exposure more than wrongdoing. Becky's resilience and Amelia's quiet devotion show us two sides of ambition and loyalty in our changing world. This summary helps us grasp the plot's key moments and the contrasting journeys of these unforgettable characters. Let's dive into the early twists of Vanity Fair. Becky Sharp and Amelia Sedley leave their school, but Becky immediately rejects convention, symbolized by her tossing away a gifted dictionary. Becky's plan to marry Amelia's brother Joss falls through, so she becomes a governess for the Crawley family. She wins over Miss Crawley and secretly marries Rawdon Crawley. Meanwhile, Amelia marries George Osborne, thanks largely to Captain Dobbin's quiet loyalty. As the Napoleonic Wars resume, the men head to Brussels, where George's flaws start to show.
Now we reach a crucial turning point in the story, the Battle of Waterloo. George Osborne dies, Rawdon survives, and Joss Sedley flees in fear. Amelia, now widowed and pregnant, falls into genteel poverty, while Dobbin quietly supports her from afar. Becky and Rawdon climb the social ladder with help from the corrupt Lord Steyne. But when Rawdon catches Becky alone with Steyne, the truth comes out. Her secret finances and possible betrayal shatter their marriage and ruin her socially. Dobbin returns, declares his love to Amelia, and they marry after she lets go of George's memory. Becky, ever resourceful, drifts through Europe, leaving her final fate uncertain. The novel closes on a note of vanity and moral ambiguity. Let's walk through the key moments in this part of the story. It starts with Becky's struggles and Amelia's steady devotion, setting the stage for what's to come. We see the rising action with Becky's attempts to find her place, leading to the secret marriage and the looming Waterloo campaign, the story's climax. After that, the falling action unfolds with George's death and Becky's complicated situation. Finally, the ending leaves us with an ironic, open close, a sharp contrast between the two women's fates. Let's look at Becky Sharp, the anti-heroine of Vanity Fair. She starts as an orphan governess, then becomes the secret wife of a baronet's son. From there, she rises to society's fringes only to fall into disgrace. Her fate, left deliberately unclear. Becky is witty, manipulative, and endlessly resourceful. She adapts to any crowd, driven by ambition and charm. Not conventionally beautiful, but clever and striking. She embodies vanity itself, climbing the social ladder without a moral compass. A fascinating, complex character to explore. Let's look at Amelia Sedley's journey in Vanity Fair. She starts as a pampered daughter, then faces hardship as a widow after Waterloo. Over time, she grows into a devoted mother and eventually a wiser wife to Dobbin, who loves her quietly for years. Amelia is kind and loyal, but also passive and sentimental, the classic Victorian ideal of gentle femininity. She's the novel's good character, often contrasted with Becky, making her a key figure for exam questions on character foils. Let's take a closer look at Rawdon Crawley, a character who changes a lot over the story. He starts off as a reckless bachelor, then becomes a devoted husband and father, even if he's been deceived. Eventually, he grows into a morally awakened man who exposes Becky's schemes. He's not the sharpest, but honest and loyal, especially to his son. Tall and dashing, he's known as a gambler and duelist. His confrontation with Becky and Lord Steyne is a key moment, one you'll want to remember for exam questions. Let's talk about George Osborne, Amelia's vain first husband in Vanity Fair. He's a static character, meaning he doesn't really change. His vanity stays the same, and his death only deepens Amelia's misplaced devotion to him. George marries Amelia against his father's wishes, but he's weak-willed and self-indulgent. He flirts with Becky even after marriage, showing he cares more about status than loyalty. He's handsome and fashionable, but the irony is clear. We know he's not worthy of Amelia's idealization. Let's look at William Dobbin, a a character who quietly carries the heart of Vanity Fair. He starts off overlooked, a clumsy schoolboy, but grows into a selfless friend and soldier. Throughout, he's devoted to Amelia, protecting her without ever demanding attention. Dobbin's loyalty and humility make him the novel's moral center, even though it calls itself a story without a hero. He's the true, unconventional hero, patient, brave, and ultimately deserving of love and recognition.
Now, let's take a closer look at some key characters in Vanity Fair and what they represent. Sir Pitt Crawley stands out as a crude, miserly figure, a symbol of a decayed aristocracy that's lost its manners. Miss Matilda Crawley, his wealthy aunt, embodies family hypocrisy, with relatives chasing her fortune. Joseph Sedley, Amelia's brother, is a comic figure, showing vanity and colonial wealth. Lady Jane offers a rare glimpse of genuine virtue, while Lord Steyne represents corruption and power, driving much of Becky's downfall.
This slide maps out the tangled relationships in Vanity Fair, showing how the characters connect and collide. We see Becky and George's flirtations sparking tension, while Amelia and Dobbin share years of devotion that lead to marriage. George and Dobbin are close friends, even as Amelia marries George. Rivalry heats up between Rawdon and Steyne after a key discovery. Becky and Rawdon's secret marriage adds another twist. This chart helps us keep track of these intertwined lives, Amelia's world and Becky's world, and the complex bonds that drive the story forward. This slide breaks down the major themes we see in Vanity Fair. The subtitle itself mocks traditional ideas of heroism. Only Dobbin really shows true virtue. The Battle of Waterloo isn't shown directly. Instead, we see its impact on those left behind, not the glory of war. Becky's rise and fall highlight how unstable Victorian class boundaries really were. The respectable surface of society hides selfishness and vice. Marriage acts as an economic deal, and nearly every character is chasing status, with Becky and George leading the charge. These themes drive the story's sharp social critique.
Let's take a closer look at the key themes running through Vanity Fair. Greed shows up in the family's relentless chase for Miss Crawley's inheritance. Power and patronage shape Becky's rise. Thanks to Lord Steyne's influence, women's constrained roles come through in Amelia's dependence and Becky's schemes for security. Materialism is everywhere, from carriages to jewels to fashionable addresses. Family and duty contrast Sir Pitt's neglect with Lady Jane's true care. And human weakness, self-interest, colors nearly every character, reflecting the narrator's sharp cynicism.
Let's dive into some key motifs and symbols in Vanity Fair. The novel opens with a preface called Before the Curtain, framing the story as a puppet show, a classic reference for narrative technique questions. Characters constantly perform social roles, almost like actors on a stage. Debt and financial instability lurk in the background, shaping social respectability. Letters reveal secrets, while games of chance reflect life's unpredictability. Symbols like the puppet show, Vanity Fair itself, and Miss Crawley's fortune deepen the themes of greed, vanity, and social performance. Let's take a closer look at the key settings in Vanity Fair and what they represent. We start at Miss Pinkerton's Academy, which sets the stage by highlighting the contrast between Becky and Amelia's backgrounds. Then there's Queen's Crawley, a once grand estate now in decline, symbolizing fatting aristocracy. London is where Becky's social ambitions play out, leading to her rise and fall. Brussels captures the lively social scene before Waterloo, which itself anchors the story through its aftermath. Finally, continental Europe shows Becky's restless life after her disgrace. Each place shapes the story in its own way.
In Vanity Fair, the narrator plays a unique role, weaving through every character's thoughts and motives with complete access. This omniscient voice isn't shy about stepping in. It interrupts the story to share sharp comments on society, morals, and even storytelling itself. The preface sets the tone, framing the narrator as a puppet master, controlling the characters like marionettes. Irony is key here. Instead of outright judgment, it lets us see the characters' self-deceptions clearly. The story also uses foreshadowing and flashbacks to connect Becky's and Amelia's fates and minor characters. They're often drawn with comic exaggeration, adding a satirical edge.
Let's take a closer look at some key literary devices in Vanity Fair, paired with examples from the text. Irony shows up when Amelia admires George, but we, the readers, see his vanity and unfaithfulness. Satire mocks the Crawley family's obsession with Miss Crawley's fortune. Symbolism is clear in the puppet show, which frames the whole novel as a staged display of vanity. The title itself alludes to Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, adding another layer. We also see foreshadowing, caricature, and juxtaposition, all working together to deepen the story's themes.
Let's take a closer look at Thackeray's prose style in Vanity Fair. It's gentle but persistent, aiming its satire at society as a whole, rather than singling out any one villain. The characters come alive through their actions and social behavior, not through idealized traits. The humor is dry and understated, more comic irony than broad farce. Dialogue reflects natural speech, marked by class, while the vocabulary blends formal Victorian diction with sharp, conversational wit. Sentences tend to be long and discursive, often with the author stepping in through asides. When we look at Vanity Fair, it's important to remember that Thackeray's novel was originally published in serial form. That means exact chapter references can change depending on the edition, so it's best to cite by context, like the closing lines or the preface. Especially in exams, the narrator's direct address at the end really captures the novel's ironic and questioning tone. The subtitle, "A Novel Without a Hero," tells us no one here fits the traditional heroic mold. The final reflection echoes Ecclesiastes, delivering a moral verdict on worldly ambition, summed up in the haunting phrase, "Vanitas vanitatum."
In Vanity Fair, the story sets up a series of sharp contrasts between characters. Becky Sharp stands against Amelia Sedley, two very different women with opposing traits. Then there's George Osborne, the vain husband, and William Dobbin, his humble, loyal friend. Rawdon Crawley clashes with the corrupt Lord Steyne, while Sir Pitt Crawley, the crude baronet, contrasts with his refined sister. These pairs help us track the tangled relationships and avoid mixing up who's who as the drama unfolds. Let's take a quick look at some key dates that shape the story and its author. The Battle of Waterloo in 1815 is the central event around which the novel's plot revolves. Thackeray, the author, was born a few years earlier, in 1811, in Calcutta, India. The novel itself was first serialized in 20 monthly installments between 1847 and 1848, then published as a single volume in 1848. Finally, Thackeray passed away in London in 1863. These milestones give us a clear timeline to understand the context of Vanity Fair. Here we have a set of exam-style questions based on Vanity Fair, designed to mirror the kind of questions you might see in various English papers. The questions focus on key details, like the novel's subtitle, the source of its title, and the pivotal historical battle that shapes the plot. Each answer is carefully explained, helping us understand not just what the correct choice is, but why it matters. This slide is a great way to practice applying knowledge in a test setting.
Let's take a look at some exam-style questions focused on Vanity Fair. We explore the narrator's role. Is it omniscient and intrusive, or something else? Then, we dive into an assertion-reason question about Becky Sharp's social ambition and tactics. Finally, there's a character question about who marries Amelia Sedley. These questions sharpen your understanding of narrative techniques and plot details, helping you prepare for exams with confidence.
This slide compares Vanity Fair to several classic novels, highlighting how Thackeray's approach differs from or aligns with other authors. We see that while Austen's satire is gentle and domestic, Thackeray's is broader and harsher. Jane Eyre focuses on inner morality, whereas Vanity Fair plays with social performance. Dickens is more sentimental about class, Eliot dives deeper into psychology, and Hardy leans into tragic fate. Meanwhile, Thackeray keeps a cooler, ironic distance, especially compared to the Gothic passion of Wuthering Heights. This sets the stage for our comparative study. Let's take a closer look at the key elements to focus on when studying Vanity Fair. We've got the main characters, Becky Sharp, Amelia Sedley, and others, each representing different facets of the story. The themes dive into vanity, hypocrisy, and social climbing, with marriage often shown as a transaction. Symbols like the puppet show and diamonds add layers of meaning. The novel uses irony and satire heavily, with an omniscient narrator who often breaks the fourth wall. Settings range from London to Waterloo, grounding the story in real places. This table is your master revision guide. Let's take a moment to review some key points about Vanity Fair facts that often come up in exams. William Dobbin stands out as the closest thing to a true hero in the story. George Osborne's death at Waterloo shapes Amelia's idealism. The scandal with Rawdon Crawley and Becky Sharp is central to the plot. Miss Crawley's fortune fuels much of the family's hypocrisy. Jos Sedley brings comic relief, tied to colonial wealth. The novel's framed like a puppet show, with an intrusive narrator calling himself the manager of the performance. It closes on a line echoing Vanitas Vanitatum, vanity of vanities. Thackeray, the author, also wrote for Punch magazine and created other major works. Vanity Fair is often compared to Dickens for its social panorama and to Austen for its sharp take on marriage. The full title reminds us, it's a novel without a hero. The story unfolds around the Battle of Waterloo, with Becky Sharp and Amelia Sedley as contrasting leads, ambition versus loyalty. These 20 facts are high yield, so keep them in mind. This slide breaks down how to tackle Vanity Fair in stages, from a quick 30-second refresher to a full 15-minute deep dive. We start with the essentials, key characters, major themes, and the pivotal moments like Waterloo. Then we add layers like satire, irony, and the narrator's unique role. Finally, we bring in comparisons to other great authors and the symbolic puppet show. It's a roadmap for mastering the novel, step by step, right up to exam day. As we wrap up, remember this powerful question from Vanity Fair: who among us is truly happy? Who has everything they desire and yet feels satisfied? Keep this in mind as you approach your exam. Stay clear, stay confident. Good luck, Mahak. You've got this. This video was created with SlideSpeak. Visit SlideSpeak to turn your presentations into engaging AI-narrated videos.